breaking your fast.
Yes.
So this is something, obviously, you've been asked about,
Yeah.
taught the world how to fast and
Yeah.
why fasting is a great tool and how there are certain principles to fast if you're a woman.
Yeah.
But how do you break your fast? So what are some principles,
Yeah.
and maybe we can talk about some of the recipes as well that you've been
Yeah.
busy creating.
Yeah, thank you. That was two of the most common questions we got with Fast Like a Girl going out into the world was, does X, Y, and Z break my fast? So like everybody wanted to know about like things from, like I said, Diet Coke to gum to coffee to tea. Like my team just answered so many of those.
Yeah.
And then what do I break my fast with?
Yeah.
So here's what I want to say. I always want to make this easy for people. So keep in mind that when you are fasting, you are in a healing state. You're not in deprivation. You're not trying to, control calories. Like you are putting yourself in a healing state. When you switch back into food, now you got to decide, do you want to keep that healing state going? If you don't care about keeping the healing state going and you just go to, out to the pub and you eat with your buddies and do whatever, fine, you just stop the healing.
Sure.
And the next time you go back into fasting again, you're back in that healing state again. Okay, but if you actually want to be strategic and re-enter back into food, in Eat Like a Girl, I have a chapter called Your First Meal Matters. Because what I want people to know is if all you do is dial in your fasting window and you dial in that first meal, you are miles ahead when it comes to your metabolic system.
Okay.
So there are 3 principles you can follow in this First Meal Matters. Okay. First principle is if you want to change your microbiome because of all the reasons we just talked about, you want to make sure you have what I call the 3 Ps in that first meal: polyphenol, probiotic, and prebiotic foods. This is what nature provided us. This is sauerkrauts and kimchis and leafy greens. We talked about the bitter foods, like anything that came from the nature, you can put in fruits. I used to do, for the longest time, my favorite thing to break a fast with was avocado with sauerkraut sprinkled with hemp seeds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was like, I just was like, I'm feeding my microbes.
Yeah.
Because what happens in that fasted state is that the microbes all rearrange themselves because food hasn't been coming in. So all of a sudden the old microbes are sloughing off. New microbes are like, okay, wait, the bullies are gone. What are we going to do? And now we come in with a bunch of nutrition for the good guys. And they're like, woohoo, the environment's changed. I've been fed. And the bad guys are like, well, this is no longer fun in here anymore. And then you have a good, healthy microbiome.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I
Ps.
really like, prebiotic foods are your nuts and seeds. Probiotic foods are anything fermented.
Yeah.
And then polyphenol foods, there's a long list, but olives, chocolate, berries, nuts and seeds have a big polyphenol count.
This is great. This sounds like my breakfast.
Does it?
Yeah. So my wife does this avocado, sauerkraut, and smoked salmon thing. And then sometimes she'll put like some feta cheese on, or she'll like jazz it out with a bit of cottage cheese, or sometimes we even have kimchi. With some eggs, and then like I always have berries or some sort of fruit on the side, some berries, and then maybe like a bit of, again, like cottage cheese, something like that, or maybe even mascarpone. So yeah, this is great. So 3 Ps. Yeah.
So 3 Ps. So that's principle. Like, break your fast. Ask yourself, what am I going to feed my microbiome?
Gotcha.
Okay. Second thing, when you go to break your fast, is how am I going to build muscle? So huge criticism of fasting, and I am here to dispel this myth.
Okay.
That fasting breaks muscle down.
Okay.
Okay. What working out, by the way, lifting heavy weights breaks muscle down. So it's, to fall into that thought pattern, you would have to pull weightlifting into it as well. But what does happen is your body does release stored sugar from your muscles. And it's just like it reorganizes the gut, it's reorganizing your muscular structure. It's depending on how long you fast, it's getting rid of that stored glycogen that's in there because it thinks you better have some glucose in the system so you could go far and go find an animal. So it needs the glucose to come, out of the muscle into the system so we have energy for the brain and the cells to go. Okay. So with that in mind, many people feel like their muscles are actually shrinking, but that's not what's happening. The muscles are making themselves a more efficient, they're remodeling themselves. So in the break fast meal, if I come in with a bunch of protein, now I'm giving them the amino acids they need so they can build themselves stronger. So 30 grams of protein, I'm a big fan of that. There's a lot of people out there proselytizing that. Make sure that first meal has 30 grams of protein or more, and you're going to start to see more muscle growth.
Gotcha.
So that's the logic behind that.
That's great. And do you always go 30 grams, or do you like titrate it to people's weight, or like, you know?
You know, this is actually a really interesting discussion to have with you, because I've seen both happen. I've seen, you know, there was a recent study that came out where they said you should have and could have up to 100 grams of protein after every workout. Now, if you look at like ketobiotic, which is one of my lower carb, lower protein style of eating, I bring your total protein down to 75 grams because I look at ketobiotic as a weight loss tool.
Gotcha.
It's like a diet you use at the right part of your cycle or a style of eating to bring down you know, to be able to lose weight. So in that, you wouldn't have enough protein. But I did that because, and this is my question for you, I did that because I see some people go on these high protein diets and they start gaining weight. Like their metabolism can't seem to break down protein. And so it stores it as extra glucose, which gets stored as fat.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to err on the sort of the amount that you need, not an excess amount. So the amount that I think most people need is 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Okay.
So for an average sized person, let's say a 70 kilo person, you know, that's around like 90 grams. So there's still nearly 30 grams of protein per meal if you're doing 3 meals a day, that is. The higher amounts at 1.5 to 2 grams, I think if you're in to muscle building mode, so you want to put on muscle, or you are of a certain age where you don't absorb as much protein, that's the only time I would really push up to that higher level.
Yeah.
The lower amounts, like you could risk sort of losing a bit of muscle, I would say, but if you're going to be increasing your protein consumption later on in the week, then it could potentially balance out. Yeah. So and I think the big paradigm shift that I'm seeing is away from protein adequacy and actually optimum protein amounts. So protein adequacy in the UK anyway, we do it 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And by that metric, everyone's eating enough protein. But by the 1.2, 1.5, which is sort of like the middle ground, we're not eating enough, particularly if you are largely plant-based, like myself, for example. And you're getting your beans and you're getting your krauts and the polyphenol-rich foods as well. So.
I like that. It's a good nuance to say that, because I took the theory of 1 gram to 2 grams per every, and we go by pounds, you go by kilograms, that you want to be of ideal body weight. And we rolled it out to our community. Now, I have a lot of menopausal women in my community. And when we rolled it out, many of them gained weight. And I was actually one of them. I like in February when I was like lifting weights, doing the whole protein thing, and I just kept packing on weight.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't right for me.
Sure.
I needed to change it until it fit my amount. Now I'm eating more than I've ever eaten before, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But personalization is really important, I think, definitely. On the protein conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Because it also depends on like where you're getting that particular protein from. Because when you're eating, you know, something like a tofu or a tempeh or a steak, it's going to be completely different in terms of the other elements that you're going to have. Like with tempeh, it's very lean. It's a lot of fiber. You're going to be absorbing a lot of that protein and not really much else in terms of the total energy intake. Whereas if you're going to be having a fillet steak or a ribeye, that's very different in terms of all the other stuff that you're going to have to be processing, the fats, the high amounts of protein as well.
Right.
So I guess that packaging of like how you consume your protein is something that most people need to be aware of.
I think that's really good. One of the things in the book, and it is one of the foundational 5, is to eat nature's food, not human-made food. And I've been taking that down is even nature's carbs.
Yeah.
So if you look at the trend of nutrition, the trends always crack me up, because we went from this trend of fat. We started with the macronutrient of fat, and we're like, fat is bad. And then all of a sudden we came to this conclusion, wait a second, fat, we can't say fat because there's good fat and there's bad fat. So we need good fat. We don't need bad fat. So we better now say healthy fats and inflammatory fats, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then we all went to carbohydrates, and we were like, oh, low carb is amazing. And then everybody was like, wait a second, like especially women, my hair is falling out. What's going on? Well, that's because we didn't go to this nuance that there are man-made carbohydrates and there are nature-made carbohydrates. And so I'm trying to bring that conversation back.
Yeah.
Then we went to the macronutrient protein, and we're like, everybody needs to eat more protein.
Yeah.
But then we haven't really broken down, like, what if you're plant-based, and what if you're an omnivore?
Yeah.
That's one thing I did in this book is I put all my favorite protein sources for plant-based, all my favorite for omnivore, because whatever your style is, go do it if it works for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to interrupt this video because I have a free guide for you so you can master fasting. It's called A Beginner's Guide to a Fasting Lifestyle. And all you've got to do is click here and you can jump right in.
And now I love what you're saying, which is, okay, because my group, my community was like, it's really hard to get 1 gram, just 1 gram for every pound of body weight I want to be.
Yeah.
That is like way more than I know how to get in a day.
So much more. Yeah.
So now I'm going to take that
because
back.
Like even for someone who works out like myself most days in the week, getting to the 1.5 for me, it's a struggle. I have to really think about it. And, people opt to shakes, which are ultra processed in a lot of cases. So, try and avoid those. And you want to earn more on the whole foods, the hemp seeds, nuts and stuff. But even that, you need to consume quite a lot to get to your protein needs. So you can understand where people can fall into a trap where they end up overeating. And then that's like, okay, that's maybe why I'm putting on the weight. And I didn't realize, even though it's like a cleaner type of protein, I'm still consuming quite a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, too, excess protein that can't be used by the cells turns to glucose and will turn to fat.
Yeah. So you have that, I forget the name of it now, but you can use protein that turns into glucose. And that's another reason why certain people have a propensity towards type 2 diabetes, because they're just consuming so much protein.
I had a really, when I first started understanding these principles, this was like 15 years ago, I had a really interesting patient case and keto was just coming on, and I had told this patient, just take all carbs out. I mean, we didn't even know about fasting then. And I was just like, just take carbs out, let's see what happens. And for every other patient, we would do that and they would drop weight. This woman actually was gaining weight. It wasn't working for her. And then I had her go look at her protein amount. It was obscene, because when you took one whole macronutrient out, you only have 2 left. You have protein and fat. And so she was eating so much protein. So I just think we have to think logically and not look for these absolutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Great. Okay. So those are principles that you look for a break fast.
Yeah. Those are the last principle for breaking your fast. So the first, just so we keep people clear, the first one was you're going to break your fast with the fermented 3 Ps to help the microbiome. The second is you're going to break it with protein to build muscle. I also have a whole bunch in the book on how amino acids, I call it, there's 24 nutrients we need to make hormones. And so there's a lot of amino acids. So protein brings those. The last one is to make sure that break fast meal has a good fat in it. And this is to stop the boomerang effect. So the boomerang effect is I opened up my eating window and now all I want to do is eat and I can't control myself. And if I had $1 for every time I heard that story, I would be a very wealthy woman. So I decided, well, let's try putting fat in that break fast meal, because what fat does is it slows the absorption of glucose and it kills the hunger hormone. So when we started doing that and then combining it with protein and then combining it with the 3 Ps, now if you think about it, your microbes are satisfied. So they're not going to tell, they're going to control blood sugar. They're not going to tell the taste buds they're hungry. Your muscles are satisfied. The protein's giving you amino acids. So protein in general is a very satiating macronutrient. And then fat has curbed your blood sugar. So if you just put those 3 together, you're solid. So the avocado, I could have, sometimes I would add I eat meat. I could add chicken breast. You could add lentils to it. Lentils are my favorite bean. But in the book, we have like a whole recipe section just on breakfast meals.
Amazing.
And then I did something else that I'm really excited about, which is I put a little icon system. There's over 100 recipes where if I thought this was a good meal to break a fast with,
oh, great,
I just put a little icon so people can see that too.
That's what people want. They want to know, okay, I get fasting, but what can I eat when I'm out of that fasting window so I can still maintain a lot of those benefits that I've generated from the fasting process.
Okay, you trying to maximize your weight loss? Apple cider vinegar may be the key. Go check out this video where I show you exactly when, how, and why you want to use it for weight loss. Apple cider vinegar changes your microbiome of your gut. This good bacteria is going to help to bring your blood sugar down and make it so that you can switch over into the fat burning state